The early 1970s were an era packed with Richard Nixon as president, astronauts landing on the moon again, and high horsepower Mopars helping the world go round. Dodge and Plymouth were building some of the most legendary muscle cars. The Challenger, Cuda, and Charger ruled the streets and ruled their showrooms. However, the one category that Dodge was seemingly falling a bit behind on was high horsepower performance at a shoestring budget. The Hemi was an amazing engine, yes, but it wasn't necessarily cheap to get. And with the youth of America having more money in their pocket, yet still being somewhat cash-strapped, they needed to build something that could appeal to them as far as a budget-friendly street brawler. And the car that they would end up building has become one of the most recognizable nameplates in all of America. Today, we will be talking about the Duster's sibling and the first summoning of the Dodge Demon with the Dodge Demon 340. Now, the Dodge Demon itself was first released in 1971 as essentially a simple rebadging of Plymouth's Duster, which was a two-door sports roof coupe based on the A-body Mopar architecture. The A-body was the same chassis that encompassed the Dodge Dart, the early Plymouth Barracudas, and even the more pedestrian Plymouth Valiant. While the Duster itself was released in 1970 as a more sports roof budget pony car option, the Demon came a year later with better branding and positioning as a cooler overall package. It gave customers a choice of 4 separate engine options, with 2 slant 6s and 2 V8 options that included a 318 or the 340. And as bulletproof reliable as the slant 6s were, today we're focusing on the 340 powered V8 version of the Demon, as that is the one that put some hurt on lots of other cars. Now, as you'd imagine, under the hood of the Demon 340 was the Dodge 340 small block. The 340 was part of the Chrysler LA engine family that started life in 1964 with its 273 cubic inch older brother, and would end up encompassing various engines like the 318, 340, and 360. The 340 itself was first created in 1968, and it featured a 4.04-inch bore and a 3.31-inch stroke. With the Demon, this included forged steel crankshaft, forged connecting rods, as well as high compression cast aluminum pistons. In 1971, for the first coming of the Demon 340, this high RPM capable short block was equipped with a high-rise dual plane intake manifold and higher flowing cylinder heads that are still regarded as some of the best performance heads of the era. Using a large 2.02-inch intake and 1.6-inch exhaust valves. With a compression ratio of 10.5 to 1, the Demon 340 was really the peak of what a small block pump gas brawler could be like from a Mopar standpoint. Several other goodies were also added, like a double roller timing chain, a sub-mounted windage tray, and a 4-barrel thermoquad carburetor that would be included to top off this 340-inch engine. For 1971, the 340 was very underrated for insurance purposes at 275 horsepower and 340 foot-pounds of torque, which in reality was much closer to 350 horsepower than the on-paper rating of 275. However, by 1972, for the second model year of the Demon, a mix of political and industry pressure forced the power to be tamed a little bit, with the compression ratio being decreased to 8.5 to 1, and the Demon 340 of that year was also given smaller valved cylinder heads, which in total made 240 horsepower on paper. This was still underrated, but it wasn't nearly as quick as its higher compression brother, who was just 1 year older. Backing the 340 version of the Demon, both years would come standard with a 3-speed manual transmission with a floor shifter. An optional 4-speed manual and 3-speed automatic were also available as well. An 8 3/4-inch rear end was put out back with an optional Sure Grip posi with your choice of 323, 355, or 391 gears to help curtail the car to best fit your needs as a driver. All these parts combined for the 340 Demon to turn a mid-14-second quarter-mile time and made it capable of tuning up many cars of the era and giving even some of the more performance-oriented competitors, like the Nova SS, a run for its money. The Dodge Demon 340 was treated with a few special trim options to set itself apart from the other three Demons, the 2.6ers and the 318 car specifically. As essentially a Dodge version of the Plymouth Duster, the Demon features the same two-door fastback body and bumpers as the Duster. However, the Demon would have its own front grille that included a divided style, while on the rear, four-bladed taillights framed out a tail panel that was different for the Demon than it was for the Duster. The Demon 340 could also be optioned with a rear spoiler, a black hood, as well as an air scoop to allow the 340s to breathe just that much better. And one could also choose to forego the performance options visually and try and stay under the radar with a bit more subdued Demon if that was more your style. The Demon 340s also came with their own decal set, which included side stripes, hood decals, and a tail panel decal to help accentuate some of the era's brightest color offerings from Dodge. The Demon, being part of the A-body Mopar chassis, used a unibody construction with bolt-in subframes. These included a heavy-duty suspension setup that used thicker torsion bars and anti-roll bars. Yes, for those of you not super familiar with vintage Mopars of the period, a lot of their cars actually utilized a torsion bar setup like you would see on many trucks, funny enough. It also packed a 6-leaf rear suspension with heavy-duty shocks. Power-assisted steering and front disc brakes were optional for the Demon in both production years. Now, inside the Demon, it was very similar to the Duster. It was only given a tiny bit more of an aggressive taste, and even more so at the 340. The 340 used the same core, really economy-friendly wood frame dash from the Duster, with two large instrument pods surrounding a smaller center gauge. One featured a 150 mph speedometer with a trip odometer, while the right gauge showed stuff related to the fuel and coolant temp, and a tachometer would be optional for the center. In 1972, the instrument panel changed to a 120 mph speedometer inside a rectangular bezel with smaller round gauges for the rest of the important metrics for the car. A standard metal exposed wheel with a padded horn button helped keep up with the 70s styling of the Demon. The Demon was also available with high back bucket seats up front, or even a bench seat that could be divided by an optional center console, which meant that in terms of size, while the Demon wasn't that big, you could technically fit 5 people in it somewhat comfortably. Upon its release, Dodge chose to use many devilish tongue-in-cheek puns to help market their new car to a hip younger audience, as this was who this budget muscle car would be designed to sell to. Slogans such as, "We just created the Demon that you won't have to sell your soul to buy." These were part of the messaging that Dodge used to drive this home. And it was a success because in 1971, just under 70,000 Demons would be built, including 10,098 of the high-performance Demon 340s. 1972 brought a price increase to the Demon MSRP, which helped sharply drop sales numbers to less than 40,000 units. However, the Demon 340 still maintained its strong sales numbers, with still 10,000 being sold, which meant that by this time everyone knew that the 340 Demon was an absolute performance bargain for what it was. In 1971, when the Demon was first released, its starting MSRP for the 340 versions was just over $2,700. Compare that to a 350-powered 1971 Camaro Z28, which was $3,600. The Dodge Demon 340 was almost a full $1,000 cheaper for very similar straight-line performance. Yes, the Camaro and some of its competitors may have handled better than the Demon 340, but if you wanted to go fast for cheap, it was undeniable that the Demon 340 was the best bang for your buck around when it came to a new car. But that bargain would soon run out because 1972 was the end of the Demon. The Demon would end up being replaced with a rebrand of the Dart and would be changed to the Dart Sport and Dart Sport 340 for the 1973 model year, which was effectively the same exact car but without the Demon branding, and that made it a little bit less special. When the Demon first came out in 71, the name actually did not sit well with various religious groups, and the Demon with pitchfork logo for the car actually was determined to be a cause of poor sales amongst the more religious crowd. But I would have to push back on that statement a little bit. See, the target market for the Demon was the more budget-friendly muscle car category, which generally skewed a bit younger. Young kids love going against the grain and being rebellious, and I'd argue that a budget muscle car that also had some controversial branding behind it almost made the Demon more attractive for some of those younger buyers. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you all for watching another episode of our Rare Cars documentary series. If you enjoyed this video, we would greatly appreciate it if you could drop a like and also share this video with other enthusiasts. Also, please make sure that you are subscribed to the Rare Cars YouTube channel and smash that notification bell for more documentary style videos just like this on the world's most interesting cars. Until next time, enthusiasts.